Hi, Junior Rangers. I'm Terry, an interpreter here at Silverwood Lake State Recreation Area. I'm in our Campfire Center, and today I thought we'd take a hike down the nature trail to the meadow and see what kind of plants and animals we can find along the way. Join me, won't you? Let's talk about trail safety, Junior Rangers. Now, anytime you're out hiking, you could run into animals like mountain lions or bears or bobcats that are big and strong enough to hurt you. The best thing to do if you run into a mountain lion is not to run away, but to hold your distance, make yourself as big and loud as you can. Now, you never want to hike alone. I have people in the office that know where I'm going and when I'm expected back, and I also have a radio with me so that they'll know if I'm not back when I'm expected to look for me. Taking another look at trail safety, we always want to stay on the trail, and there's a big reason for that. Going off trail is bad for you. It's also bad for the environment. It's bad for you because you could run into things like poison oak or snakes. It's bad for the environment because you could smash delicate plants or cause erosion, which also hurts the soil and also compacts the soil when you go off, so the plants can't grow as well. One great reason to stay on trail is because of poison oak. You can see it down here. Poison oak can make you itch, but we have a little poem about it that goes, leaves of three, let it be. If it's shiny, watch your hiney. If it's hairy, it's a berry. You can see that the leaves on this, both the green and the red leaves, are usually grouped in threes. They look kind of like oak leaves, which is why it gets its name, but usually you'll see poison oak either growing as a shrub or a vine closer to the ground or sometimes woven up into the trees, and it'll have at this time of year, it can have red leaves, and it'll get more red leaves as it goes along. You'll also notice that these leaves are smooth. They're not hairy, they're not spiky, so they're smooth, so that's how we know they're poison oak. If they had hair on them or had little thorns on them, they might have been wild blackberries. But we know this is poison oak because it is smooth and not hairy. One of my favorite things to do down here at the Campfire Center is to sit and watch this water spigot for a while. We get many, many birds that come here and drink from this water spigot. So I'm going to sit here quietly as I can. And while we do, let's listen to the bird sounds around us, and you can think about and tell me how many you can hear. So let's listen. So, Junior Rangers, how many bird sounds did you hear in that last little bit? Did you hear the crows or ravens? Did you hear the songbirds? What other birds did you hear? Let me know in the comments. Now let's go ahead and continue watching, and you'll see some lesser goldfinches come in to get a drink at the water spigot. Not everything that grows here is part of the natural forest. Like this pear tree right behind me, this is from the days when this was farmland before the lake was here. And there are pear trees and apple trees that we find throughout the park. They're not quite ready yet, but these pears are ripening up and would be edible. We usually leave them though for the birds and the deer and the bears. As we start down the trail, we see one of our interior live oaks here. We have lots of these in this area up here in the mountains and also down in the foothills. You can tell this is an interior live oak because it's got smaller leaves than on our other kind of oak in the park, which we'll look at in a bit. And they're kind of leathery and spiky. You'll notice a contrast when we look at the other oak, that those have deeply lobed leaves. So these leaves kind of leathery. The deer like to browse on them, and other animals use them for cover. You remember our interior oak that we looked at earlier? Well, now we're going to look at this black oak behind me. It has very different leaves. We're going to see how the black oak and the interior live oak are different from each other. Now you can see the leaves on this black oak have very distinct lobes. Now both of these kinds of oaks can grow as either bushes or trees. They can get about 30 feet tall, and they both grow in the foothills. This black oak, though, is loved by the livestock and the wildlife. It's used for food by birds, and the acorns are eaten by feral pigs. Black bears love it for cover. It has a lot of great uses. The interior live oak browse for deer too, just like this oak is. So they both are very useful, very important to the ecosystems. I'm standing here under one of our big black oak trees. You can see how big it is as we take a look up through the canopy. And I'm standing under it, and one of the ways that this tree gets used by the local wildlife is as a hiding spot. Animals like squirrels and woodpeckers will hide their acorns from this tree that they find down here in these little hidey holes. Or in the case of the woodpecker, they'll actually poke holes into the trunk and then put their acorns in there, which other animals might find. Here's another great place to see the contrast between the interior live oak and the black oak. Here on this side, we have the leaves of the interior live oak. You can see how they're a little spiky on the sides and smaller than the leaves here of the black oak. They have nice deep lobes. So they're also a little more tender than these spikier, tougher leaves, although the deer do eat both of them. Well, Junior Rangers, we've gotten down here to the meadow. We've come down the hill from the Campfire Center, and you can see that this meadow has a lot fewer trees than what we just came through, where the trees were pretty heavy coming down the hill. And that is so that the grasses can grow here. One plant we find in the meadow is the California toyon. It's known for its red berries and its small leathery leaves. Sometimes we call it a Christmas berry or a coffee berry, but the proper name is a toyon. Now those berries, they are edible, but they're quite bitter. The Native Americans would gather them when they were very ripe, and then they had ways to process them to take the bitterness out, but they were never going to be sweet. So they were a foodstuff, but they were not a sweet foodstuff. Okay, Junior Rangers, we've reached the end of the trail, and there's this big fallen log that's been on the ground for some years. Now, I know a lot of people think that once a log falls down, the tree is dead, life is over. But that's just not the case. That's when the decomposers go to work. So let's take a look at that. You can see in this stump here all these little areas where there are little holes there, and you can see this wood is pretty soft and can just chip away. That's because the termites and other insects have been in there working to take this log apart. So what does that do? Well, once this log is all decomposed, it will make organic matter that makes the soil better and will help the plants to grow. So even in death, this tree is helping this meadow stay healthy. Okay, Junior Rangers, that's the end of our hike today. Tell me in the comments what you like the best here at the park, and if you've ever seen any of these things in your area too. Thanks.